We've been picking up on some key themes, trying to put those into practice. I heard a couple people quoting some things that were said yesterday. I think that's important. Some of you will get more out of it. Remember, continue to sharpen that axe like Coach O'Neill was talking about. Today, we've got a great opportunity for you. It's a panel of coaches with tons of experience, tons of different backgrounds of the people in which they've coached. So you get an opportunity to ask all kinds of questions. I'll kind of lead the way on a few, but hopefully you get whatever you want out of it. So first, we'll start with Coach Gilbert. I know Coach Gilbert, got the honor to play for him, and then came over here with him. Just an excellent coach. He's coached at the youth, the middle school, high school, collegiate level. Worked with all kinds of athletes, seen their progression throughout time. Coached both boys and girls. He's coached at a country, a city school, suburban school. Coached football, basketball, track. He's been a part of state championships. All kinds of different titles along the way, conference titles. So very successful. Great man there. Somebody you can take a lot from, not just from the coaching realm, but also personal life too. So, Mr. Tebby here, you know him as the athletic director, but also, he has an extensive coaching background. Just so you get an idea, he's been the assistant AD for 13 years. He's also been a varsity girls basketball coach for 8 years, varsity girls golf coach for 3 years, varsity assistant football coach 4 years, varsity assistant boys basketball coach 5 years. And he's also had the privilege of having 3 sons who have grown up, through the Westfield community, been student athletes with 2 more on the way. So he has a ton of experience, not to mention being a part of overseeing a ton of successful teams here at Westfield. And then Coach Wachtel, just like Coach Gilbert, I get the privilege to work with them extensively, especially with track. Coach Wachtel, learned a ton from him, extremely successful. Coached both track, cross country here for the past 12 years. He's been both the boys and girls head track coach. He also has coached football and baseball. He's coached, listen to this, 21 state outdoor medalists, tons of indoor medalists, probably too many to count. When you look back at some of the records that hold both the girls and boys 4x8 team, he's coached state championships in those, also the state record in the distance medley relay. Assistant coach on the cross country team that just finished 3rd in the state this past year, and has also been a part of 2 HCC championships. So great experience here. Want to turn it over to them. We've kind of done a phrase of the day. Each time out, we want you to start getting the ball rolling here. Some phrase that you would suggest would be useful to them to put into practice.
Well, the phrase that I chose to talk about today is one we use a little bit on the track team especially. It's a Latin phrase, acta non verba, means actions, not words. I have a lot of athletes who tell me, I want to be this, I want to be varsity, I want to run at state, I want to be a state champion, I want to do all those things. The trick is, do you understand what you need to do in order to reach those goals? Setting goals is great. Saying you want things is great. But what actions are you willing to undertake in order to achieve those goals? Words are cheap. Talk is cheap. That's the cliche. Words are easy to say. But what are you willing to do? Both on your team and off your team. Both in season and out of season. What are you willing to do in order to make those words come to fruition?
The phrase I want to bring in today is it kind of goes along with some of the things that were said this week, and that is focus on process, not outcome. And the whole thing about sharpening the saw and being in the moment, it kind of goes along with that. But the 2 things that I want to bring up today is, I say this tongue-in-cheek, but raise your hand if you remember when sports used to be fun. Okay? You remember when you were a kid, when sports really used to be fun. Okay? Okay, now, I say that tongue-in-cheek, okay, I don't want to get anybody in trouble here. What's changed? What's changed is we're way too worried about the outcome and not worried about the process. Okay? We're worried about playing collegiately. We're worried about getting a scholarship. We're worried about playing in tonight's game or next week's game. We're worried about, am I going to be, the starting left guard next year on the football team? Quit worrying about the outcomes and just focus on the process, okay? And the thing about the process is you're in control of that. You're not in control if you play tonight or if you play the next season you play in. Your coach is kind of in control of that to a certain degree, but you are in control of the process. What are you doing to make that happen? So if let's focus on that process. Morning workouts, are they fun? They can be. Okay? Yes, they can be. All right? Okay. And probably the thing that I have the most experience with, okay, that Coach Miracle alluded to, is I've had 3 sons here play athletics at Westfield, and all 3 of them were different. My oldest son, who got cut from some sports, okay, who as a freshman and sophomore was the smallest kid in the ACC on any football roster both years, but played all 4 years of football. I had a kid who started varsity point guard for 2 years. Okay. Then I have a son now who a lot of you know, Connor, who chose not to play sports after his sophomore year. And all those things are great. Okay. There's nothing wrong with any of them. So right now, and I just want to say this, if you have a goal to be a collegiate athlete, that's great. But if you don't have a goal to be a collegiate athlete, that's great too. Okay. Enjoy the process. Keep sports fun.
Shameless plug. First of all, I'd like to tell you all thanks for being here all week. It means a lot to us that you take it so serious, and we want to absolutely give you our best. But on a Friday afternoon, we're at the pep rally. Really appreciate the dedication you have to be here and to get better. Secondly, I know Coach Miracle's been plugging his class up here, sports psych class, which I'm sure will be terrific, very, very interesting. Make sure you know that you're in weight training. It's maybe your coach won't push that as much, but for the vast majority of the sports, that's pretty much essential. And it would be hard to imagine how not being in there every trimester is going to help you. So make sure you're in there every trimester. If you're in band, you take band class. If you're an athlete, you take weight training. So we have a great guy down there running that. And Coach Henson is tremendous. We have an awesome facility. Make sure you're there investing in your body. And then I teach, I'm kind of a leadership junkie. I teach a leadership class. Love having athletes in there. Anyone would like to take that, we'd love to have you in there as well. My word for the day or phrase for the day is how you do one thing is how you do everything. Because I really believe that everything matters, and winning's in the details. And it's really, really easy to kind of just coast and be a coaster who's in the middle of the pack all the time. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So make sure that kind of like Mr. Tebby is talking about, that in that process you do everything with as much enthusiasm, intensity, and work ethic as you possibly can, and then the results will take care of themselves. But know that winning is in the details, and how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Great responses. One thing I want to bring up, and then we'll kind of open up the floor for any questions you have. You've had the privilege to coach some really great athletes, each of you at different levels, different sports. What has separated those great athletes and ones that you view as elite versus, just the ones that may be out there, they're still part of the team contributing, but what makes an athlete great? What are you really looking for?
When I was coaching college football, we had some exceptional guys, and here we've had some terrific players as well. And when I was at Ben Davis, we had Mr. Football. We had some terrific guys. Most of those guys, I would say, day in, day out, they brought it from a work ethic standpoint, and their commitment level was off the charts. So the thing that I would say would tie them together, some of the great athletes that I've been around, would be their commitment to get better. Not necessarily that they were born with the most talent, but they had a competitive spirit, and competitive drive, and the grit to just keep going over and over and over, regardless of how many workouts it was, what kind of adversity they faced, who they were behind, what injury that they had sustained. None of that really seemed to matter in the end. You could count on any day you were with them, they were an animal in terms of their preparation with them.
To kind of add to that, the athletes that are sponges, and those are the athletes that, you've heard it this week where things go by so fast. Your high school career will be over, quicker than you realize. Those athletes that don't take that time for granted, they understand that there's a clock ticking, okay? And so they take every moment and they use that to soak it up, whether it's the coach talking or a game situation. They just soak that in and experience that in just a more deep
would say two things. One, they've found a balance between their love for the sport and their dedication to it. And I guess what I mean by that is they do still find the fun in it, despite the fact that they're working very, very hard at it. I have a lot of athletes who love it, but don't really want to put all the work in. We got a lot of athletes who are really good at it, but don't really love it. That balance is, I think, really important. They really want to be good, but they also really love doing it. They love to compete. The love of competition, whatever you're doing, just put yourselves in as much, take the opportunity to compete as much as you can. In practice, all the time, look for opportunities to compete. It's really important. And I would say one other thing. My best athletes have been really good communicators. They talk to me, they ask me questions, they listen to me, because communication is a two-way street. And we have conversations. When I was first coaching on my own here, I was no longer an assistant coach, but I was in charge. We had a runner here who is one of the finest athletes we've ever had at Westfield High School. He's still on our record board in 2 places. He's went on to a very important collegiate career, which he's still in the middle of. And I will tell you that when I first took over, I was a little worried about coaching him because I wasn't sure he would listen to me because he was already pretty good. And as soon as we started, it was such a team relationship with him. He would talk to me, I would talk with him. He would communicate with me, let me know when he was feeling one way or another. And that communication, I thought, was a really important part of our relationship and a really important part of why he got to be such a good athlete. I like to tell a story about him. His name is Connor Martin, by the way. As a track athlete, one season, he broke the county record, he broke the conference record, he broke the sectional and regional records, and the school record, and never won a race. Because the guy who he was competing with was beating, we did everything we could possibly do to try to beat this kid. He was just a little better. And that communication made it really important. He could have gotten down the whole time, but we talked through it. This is what we did this time. This is what we'll do next time. That communication, I think, was really important.
Okay, we'll open it up. Does anybody have a specific question they want to address?
They know everything already. That's good.
Well, people are thinking of questions. I'm going to add something to what Coach Martell just said. He talked about communication. Something I think that really separates great athletes are the athletes who understand that communicating with the coach isn't a butt kisser. Okay? They're pleasers. They want to do well for the team. They want to do well for the coach. And if you look around at your teammates who either cut down a teammate or cut down a coach, sit back and think why they're doing that. Most of the time, it's to make them look good. Okay? So the next time you hear a teammate do something like that, cut down a program, okay, it's to make them look good. If you hear a teammate cut down another program, it's to try. Why are they doing that? Probably to make their program look better. Okay? So the negativity that I know you guys are around at times, okay? Make sure you channel that and understand maybe why that person's doing that, okay? But don't be afraid to talk to your coaches, okay? They're not perfect, but they're great, great people.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard for athletes to understand that we want the best for the athletes, and that sometimes we have to make tough decisions, and we may ask you to do things that you might not at the moment completely understand. And again, I would say you need to have a conversation with your coach about why things are happening, not a, why are you doing this to me? But, coach, I want to understand what's happening here. I think that if you can realize that we are trying to help you, become the best person and the best athlete you can become, you'll understand more why some of the things we ask you to do are not so much fun, and why some of the decisions we make on your behalf might not be the decisions you would make for you. But we're trying to use our experience, our love of the sport, our knowledge of the sport, and our concern about you to try to make those decisions. We often talk about, if you well, it's kind of an NFL thing right now. You go to an NFL player who's just got his head rocked, and you ask him if he wants to go back in the game, he's going to say, yeah, I want to go back in the game, because they always want to go back in the game. They'll lie, cheat, and steal. They'll steal their helmet to get back in the game. But sometimes the coach has to be sort of the adult in the situation and make a decision that's for the best of the athlete, even though the athlete might not completely understand or appreciate the decision that's being made. We really do like you guys. We really do want you to do well. And it's not about us. It's about the team. Okay? It's about what we can do together.
I'd say one thing, looking at, a lot of teams that are successful, a lot of it hinges on leadership. I think we're one of the quotes, everything rises and falls on leadership. One of the things that we notice kind of behind the scenes as coaches is there's been a decline, I would say, in peer-to-peer leadership. It's very difficult. I don't know if you can address that topic and maybe try to give them some ways to go about peer-to-peer leadership and the importance of it in the team.
Yeah, I'll take that. I think it's more challenging for you than it was for us older people, because we only had one way really to communicate. When I grew up, my phone was literally tied into the wall with rotary numbers and a cord. So the only way you could communicate was peer-to-peer, so you practiced it all the time. And I think it's just harder to communicate peer-to-peer than it ever has been, because you don't practice as much. And I think there's just an element of society that's a little more, it's a little different in that, you don't want to be judgmental. Everyone can kind of have the right way. Whatever you believe is fine. Whatever I believe is fine. You're okay, I'm okay. And so there's a part of you that doesn't ever want to correct a peer. And sometimes in leadership, you have to correct others. So, I think the biggest challenge comes from just doing that and taking reps doing that without feeling like, oh my gosh, this person's going to hate me, this and that. And I think it takes time. I think in the high school setting, you have some time to grow together, and that does help it. But it takes time to develop relationships so that you can feel like I have permission to encourage this person. I know them well enough to encourage them, or I know them well enough to correct them. But some of you who are scared to speak up, I think you have to get over that. And I think you have to be willing to turn to your peer and say, look, man, I love you, but this is wrong. This is bad. I think some people are over the top, and they need to learn that rules without relationship equals rebellion. Some people are like, well, coach said we need to lead, and so I'm just going to start calling people out left and right. I think there's a place for that too. But I think it's always helps if you have the currency of relationship and love between you. And then even if there's a tense moment, you get right back to a pretty strong relationship and you hear what the person said, not how they said it as much.
I think something that helps student athletes be leaders is confidence. And I think a lot of our student athletes, I don't want to call it fake confidence, but you say, I'm confident. Okay, you tell yourself that, but you don't necessarily believe it. And I think what's important is that you truly do have that confidence, and that it's kind of almost like an inner confidence. And it really goes kind of back to my phrase of focusing on the process. If you quit worrying about the results on a Friday night or whenever your game is, and focus on it daily and win that day at practice by doing the drills or the steps it takes to get good at your craft, you start building that confidence. And then it doesn't necessarily matter if you had a great game or not. You still have the confidence to lead your teammates. I think too many times we think, well, the guy who scores 20 points has to be the leader, or the fastest swimmer has to be the leader. And that's not true. Okay? It's the inner confidence that you have just going about your business
I know as much as he does. Look, I'm 53 years old. I've been coaching for a long time. I do not know everything there is to know about coaching. Far from it. I learn every day. It's why I like to be here every day. Because I learn from Coach O'Neill. I learn from Coach Gilbert. I learn from all these people. Because they have different perspectives. I eat lunch with Coach Lidskin every day. And he and I argue about track and cross country. And we have conversations about it. And he says, what do you think about this? And I say, well, I think this. And he says, well, this is what I always did. Okay? He's a lot younger than I am. He's a lot more successful coach than I am too. But he's a lot younger than I am. That doesn't mean that he knows less than I do. It doesn't necessarily mean he knows more than I do either. Because he always listens to me as well. It's a conversation. But you have to allow yourself to be led by people, to learn from people, because they have different experiences from you. Okay? Just because they might correct something you're doing in a drill doesn't necessarily mean they're telling you you're terrible. You're worthless. I know it sounds like that sometimes. That's not what it is. It's just another set of eyes on you. It's hard to be self-critical. It's hard to see what you're doing physically and mentally all the time. And sometimes I think we allow ourselves to listen to what other people are saying to us, not just adults, not just coaches, not just the obvious leaders, but also our peer leaders. We can get better from that as well, because they've all had different experiences. We had 3 really good runners on the cross-country team this year. They're all very different athletes. They got where they were in different ways. They have different skill sets. They have different knowledge. If they listen to one another, they'll all get better collectively. And that's what you try to breed in a team. But I think it's hard sometimes to listen to someone who is your age, or in some cases even younger than you, and to accept the fact that they might have some insight here that maybe you don't have, or they're seeing something that you haven't seen. Look, it's okay to listen to someone who corrects you or makes a suggestion to you, and to sift through it and think about it in the cool of the evening and say, you know what, I think he's actually wrong. I think I'm doing it the right way. And that's okay if you've come to that from a position of authority, or a position of intelligence, a position of experience. Okay, it's okay to do that. But to lash out at a guy who's trying to help you is not helpful to anything. It's not helpful to the team dynamic, and it's not helpful to you. Just listen. You don't always have to have an answer. Sometimes it's okay to just listen. I do that a lot. I've gotten a lot better at that the older I've gotten. I was not very good at it when I was 17 years old. I'm a lot better at it now than when I'm 53. It's a lot easier for me to see how many mistakes I've made and how many faults I have the older I get.
Right response. Those are nice. Hey, we got any questions here, or coaches in the back? Or you?
I'll add to if you are trying to lead someone, here's a little tip that will help you. The more specific, if you do need to criticize a teammate, the more specific, the better. If, let's say we're out playing basketball as a team here, and someone doesn't block out, or they're trying but they're kind of doing something wrong, and the coach blows it and says, everybody on the line. Okay. Now let's say one person reacts and says, come on, man, let's go. Sick of this. What the person who didn't block out hears is, that person hates my guts. And since they hate me, I don't like them either. And gets defensive. That's really common. Let's go! It takes a lot of imagination. Just say the same thing that this guy over here just said. Okay. Now let's say someone else comes up and says, look, he's beating you to the baseline side every time. So when the shot goes up, turn, get a feel with this arm and slide to the baseline. That person may be equally ticked about having to rerun and get on the line, but this person who didn't block out hears, oh, so maybe I should shuffle towards the baseline and do it this technique, whatever it is. But the difference was the specific nature of the criticism. Both of those kids could have been just as angry about having to run. But the one who was specific, that's much better leadership. And the person who cost the team will respond much better to the specific criticism than the in general blanket statement of, you stink.
Guess just kind of finish up in the last couple minutes. We just kind of open the floor to you guys. Any advice that you have for them, feel free to take it however you'd like. And just things to take away. Final note of the week.
I'll do my final shout out here. One of the things that I've really learned to appreciate and respect and understand in my 13 years in the athletic office is just how amazing all of you are in each of your own sports. Okay? And back in 2000, some of you weren't born then, I know. Okay? When I was, coaching girls basketball and girls golf, I had no idea that swimming came in at 5:30. I had no idea that cross country ran before and after school. I didn't know those things. And being in the athletic office, I get to see all 20 sports and what they do. I didn't see the cheerleaders coming in during the whole month of June and July in an unair conditioned gym many times. And so whenever I hear a kid talk about another sport, it's like a knife that just grinds in me. That there's not that mutual respect. Okay, support each other. Okay, there's 700 of you in this school. There's 2,000 students. There's 700 of you who are student athletes. Support each other. Okay, the thought of running a cross-country race may be the last thing in the world you would ever do. Okay, or jumping in a pool at 5:30. Okay, or trying to stop a 250-pound kid with a ball in his hand. Okay, I get that. There are sports that you don't understand, but respect them and respect your classmates about it.
Do you know why your coaches coach? Do you know why your coaches have chosen to coach sports? I know why I do it. It's because I miss competing. I can't do those things anymore. I played high school football. I thought I was a pretty good high school football player, but I can tell you I just loved competing. I just loved playing football. I loved games. I ran track. I loved meets. I loved trying to beat people. But here's the message I want you to get. That period of time where you get to do this with that body and that mind and this organization is very, very short. Very short. Shorter than you realize. It's going to be gone soon. Most of you will not go on and compete in college. Your senior year will be the last time you are in a competitive sport at the level you are at the high school level. Don't waste this opportunity. There's a coach at the University of Colorado, Mark Wetmore. He talks about not being cavalier about your sport. I don't know if you know that word. Cavalier means you just don't care quite that much. Okay? Don't take it for granted. It's going to go away soon. You only get, I always talk about this with the track team. And look, the track team is made up of the cross-country team, the soccer team, the football team. There are very few guys who are just track athletes. And even with 2 seasons or 3 seasons of time, I can count very quickly the number of times they're going to be allowed to go into a competition and compete against other people. It is such a small number. Don't waste those opportunities to compete. You always hear about NFL teams. It drives me crazy. They'll get really up for one game and then they'll just kind of not play. I'm like, you don't play 16 games a year. How hard is it to get up 16 times? How hard is it to give your all 16 times? I know it's hard with basketball and stuff like that because there are more games. But in high school, you just don't get that many opportunities. So take those opportunities. Do not let these go by without taking every moment to do what you can with whatever it is you've chosen to do.
Okay, I just quickly also challenge you to really support each other. You are special. Mr. Tebby just gave us those numbers. How many sports do we have?
20 20 sports with different levels.
We have 20 sports, but we're one team. We've got 20 sports, but we're one team. And I think people need to support each other better here across sports. I'd like to see better fan attendance. Now, the sport I coach, we have it pretty good. I understand that. I'd like to see better participation, people at the other sports, and fans just showing up, and kids, student body. The other 1,300 kids they will follow you. You're the leaders of the school. So, if you show up at a wrestling meet, or a baseball game, or a track meet, or whatever, trust me, they will come. So I'd like to see you support each other a little more. Here's one thing you have to kind of decide. Westfield is changing. The first day I was in this building as the head football coach, I had the kids fill out a survey. There were 110 kids in here meeting a new football coach. And the most confident kid I had ever coached was a kid named Wade Bertrand. And I asked them, what do you think we can achieve next year? With 110 kids, one kid thought if we had a great year, we could be 500. How about through a? That was Wade. He was the only kid who thought if we had an incredible year, we could go 500. We, as a school, are growing fast, and we've changed how we're doing things. Something like this, Saw Week. We want to be cutting edge. We want to be the best there is. Well, I just want you to understand that was so exciting last week when our boys beat Carmel. I just want to get to the point to where not only are we good enough to beat the best schools in the state every night out, we're good enough that on our worst night we always do anyway. And I know winning is fun. It's not the only thing. The result is definitely not the only thing. But it is a lot more fun when we do it. And you work so hard right now. You guys are working so hard here that I just want our confidence to improve. And I think that starts by setting a little bit higher vision. And I think if you all make a pact to get together and just support each other and understand that wins tonight by our girls and boys basketball team, that's wins for all of us. Okay? If wrestling goes out there and gets it done in the conference on Saturday, that's a win for all of us. So we're all in this together. We're all Rocks. 20 sports, one team. Support each other like Mr. Tebby was calling for you to do.
Really appreciate everybody coming out this week. Understand that we may not be your primary coach, but we're here anytime you need us. I mean, there's a ton of knowledge. You're looking at these guys up here, but all across the board. Stop in anytime, any way we can help you to improve. I mean, a lot of us are doing morning workouts, things of that nature. If you want to get bored on things, then hey, by all means do that. We're here to help you out. You got Coach Gilbert, he's teaching that leadership class. I mean, those are things try to sign up for, right? Getting as involved as you possibly can. Like they're saying, don't waste the opportunities. But we appreciate everything. Good luck, whatever season you're in now or the season that you're training for here in the off season. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.